What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before I get into today's video, I just want to start by saying thank you for the overwhelming amount of support and great feedback and just the overall traction I got on that last video. I totally did not expect that. And seeing as people are interested in that kind of stuff and what I have to say about it, I'll definitely be looking to make some more of those videos. I'm not gonna lie, it's way out of my comfort zone, and I'm probably gonna have to write myself a bit of a script for, long-winded stuff like that, because I just get way off track way too easily, end up skipping over points and having to circle back and all that. So I'll find a way to structure it better so I can actually get some good, insightful thoughts out there. But overall, man, like the amount of traction I got just blows my mind. I think at this moment it's up to like 1,800 views. I probably gained 80 or 90 subscribers from that, so thank you very much, and welcome to the channel if you're new here. Anyways, moving on to the topic of today's video, and that is just going over where I'm at with my process. For those who are new, I am currently in my down period between the off season and contest prep, where I'm aiming for a show at the beginning of November this year. So as of now, I am 3 weeks into this phase with another 3 weeks to go before contest prep. But the big thing is that I'm currently working through an injury, specifically a herniated disc, which isn't really a small injury to work through, unfortunately. So I'll just kind of get everyone up to speed with what I've been doing the last 3 weeks and what I'm going to be doing going forward. Over the past few weeks, the overall mindset and approach to the recovery has changed quite a bit. I've been working with a PT, and originally we were trying to go with an active recovery approach where basically we're trying to still be a bodybuilder but avoid anything that's going to aggravate the injury and see if we can recover that way. So what that looked like was, replacing step mill cardio with exercise bike, removing any like standing exercises and replacing them with something seated. So I attempted that for the first couple weeks, but frankly, I wasn't seeing much progress. Some days I felt like maybe I was, but just looking at the big picture, it wasn't making much notable progress. Which brought us to last Monday, where I trained legs, and within the session, it wasn't too bad. I mean, basically, there's always a pain there. It's just how painful is it? Some days it's more tolerable than others. Some positions are more tolerable. But within the session, it wasn't too bad. Moving into that night and the next morning, it definitely flared up the symptoms and aggravated it. I felt like I was moving in the wrong direction. So at that point, I was just exhausted of being in pain for basically 24/7. Some points, like most of the time it's tolerable. At some points it's like fucking debilitating if I'm standing on my feet for too long. So it just gets exhausting after a while. So I decided to bite the bullet and say, I'm just gonna stay out of the gym until this is 100%. So spent 7 days out of the gym where it did make notable progress, and it became very tolerable. Still very much there, and I wouldn't even consider it close to being fully healed, but it was progressing at a rate where I was comfortable with saying, okay, let's test the waters, let's see if I can go in and train and see if we continue on this trend. So that brings us to 2 days ago, which was Tuesday this week, and I decided I was going to go to the gym, and I trained back.
Bitches fall out, real niggas fall in. Sharks in them waters, there you stick your toes in. Try and find God, cause they gave me hell. Road paved in them hundreds, that's a paper trail. Chinchilla dime move, but the coupe loafing. Absorbed all this bullshit and let the truth soak in. Self-made, never punched the clout. Before I hug a pig, I'ma hug the block. From them blocks where the young niggas hit they vein. To touring out the country, now we switching planes. They try and kill my mind and my body. Coke boys, new Illuminati.
Unfortunately, the results weren't what I was hoping for. Not that it got worse, but the next day it was definitely aggravated and wasn't in any better condition than I previously was. So that being said, basically at this point, I'm back to the drawing board. I'm happy to get that out of my system because being out of the gym for a week, like anybody that's a bodybuilder and fucking loves training knows how fucking hard that is. No matter like how injured you are, you just want to be in the gym like feeling productive, because otherwise at this point I'm just eating my meals, going for walks, sitting on my laptop working. It's a pretty hard shift from going from someone who is constantly using their body to just being a couch potato essentially. So anyways, scratch that itch, and I don't feel like it went backwards, but I'm more than happy with taking 3 or 4 more days off in a row here, and hoping that that just continues to compound. So at this point, I'm kind of aiming to hit another session maybe on Monday. Who knows? I'm being optimistic. Maybe I'll be pain-free by Monday, which would be fucking awesome. But anyways, that's where I'm at injury-wise and recovery-wise. And just one last note on that, I just want to say, like, this whole injury experience is probably the most both emotional and physically challenging things, like, I've ever been through. I mean, I know I'm kind of, like, within it right now, so it feels like that. I might look back on it and be like, it's not that bad, but definitely emotionally, it has been tough. Essentially my livelihood's been taken away from me for the last 6 to 8 weeks. I'm finding ways to be productive otherwise, which I'll touch on in a moment here, but, basically my life, like, depends on being a bodybuilder at this point, or at least it feels like it. My income, most of my income is funded by being a coach, which very much requires me to be an athlete as well. I don't have trophies, I don't have accolades, I don't really have like a great resume either than my body and how I'm progressing myself as a bodybuilder. That's my main selling point as a coach, is someone that's working their ass off and getting results for themselves, and basically leading from the front. So if you take that away from me, that, sure, like, I'll have some loyal clients, but it will make it that much harder to, gain traction and take on new clients. I know me personally, it would be hard to hire someone that, isn't walking the walk themselves. So that's why it's been really hard emotionally. Just have a lot, I feel like I have a lot on the line when it comes to that stuff. Moving on to a more positive note, although I've been out of the gym and that sucks, and just overall the lack of structure sucks, I have been using this time to improve on some other aspects. Big one being improving my sleep schedule, which has been a huge problem and was becoming even worse of a problem. So just for some back reference, I want to say it was like August or September last year when I left my job. It was during my contest prep. And at that time, I got in the habit of basically not setting an alarm, just sleeping in as long as I felt I needed. And basically became abusive of that, which turned into me sleeping 10 to 11 hours every day. I could probably count on one hand how many times in the last 6 months I slept less than 10 hours. So it was great. It was great in the beginning. Felt like a lot of stress came off my shoulders. I was recovering so much better. But, as time went on, it became more of a stressor than anything, if I'm going to be honest. The reason being is that, in the beginning, I didn't have much responsibility. I was just kind of building the framework for my coaching business, and I only had a few clients, so, they didn't need a ton of attention. Just overall, I just had less responsibilities. But over the course of the last 2-3 months, my coaching has really scaled up to a whole new level that I'm super grateful for. And, now I actually have responsibility, and it does feel like a job. I mean, it sure as hell isn't as demanding as, punching a clock, but, I did start to feel like I needed structure in my day, and I couldn't afford to lose a couple extra hours just because I wanted to sleep in. So that being said, I'm now back on pace for how I like it. I was basically sleeping from, I want to say, 2 or 3 a.m. to about noon, maybe even 1 some days, which is just ridiculous. So now I'm back on a routine of sleeping, getting to bed at like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. at the latest, and I'm setting my alarm for 6 p.m. Sorry, 6 a.m. And, most days I'm actually waking up before that and getting up, which is awesome. Within a week, it's just my mental has improved so much just from that. I'm definitely a big believer in like the circadian rhythm, and we're not we're built to wake and go to bed with the sun, because I know for a fact when I was sleeping until noon or later, once like let's say like 5 or 6 a.m. rolled around, the sleep from then to noon was just terrible. Like it was just unproductive sleep. It was restless. So sleep quality's definitely improved just by shifting that back. And just in general, like I feel way more productive. I'm up before most of my clients are sending check-ins. I don't feel like I have to put out a million fires the second I wake up. So it's great. I could do my morning routine, maybe a couple check-ins are in, and then after that I could be settled in and ready for them to just flow in and get to them as they come in, rather than having to play catch up every day. Moving on, we'll take a look at where I am in terms of my plan. Not a lot has changed since my last update video, because pretty much, like I said, the main objective right now is recovering. And also on top of that, since we did just finish the off season and I'm at an all-time high weight by a pretty big margin, we are focusing on holding my weight up here for as long as possible. So that being said, looking at the plan and my weigh-ins here, looking back into last week, I did see a spike in weight, and that is an all-time high weigh-in for me at 249.4. It was 2 days after training legs, so obviously quite a bit of inflammation driving that, and you'll see the weight drops off after that. I just thought that was cool to hit an all-time high weight. Unfortunately, it didn't ring in the 250, but we'll save that for next off season. And then I checked in on Friday here at 247.6. Told my coach this is what I'm doing. I'm staying out of the gym until this is 100%. Obviously, he was on board for it. He's been kind of subtly pushing me towards that anyways. Like it started off like, okay, like just get in the gym 2 or 3 times per week, but I think the whole time he wanted to just tell me to stay out of the gym, but he knows what I'm like, and I mean, he's a bodybuilder himself, obviously, so he knows the mindset and how hard that is. So I think he was more than happy to be on board with me staying out of the gym entirely. He's always been big on that. Just if you can't be productive in the gym, just stay out of there. You need to be making some sort of progress every time you're in there. So anyways, checked in on Friday, and we did make some changes to the diet, and you'll see since then, weight has come down a good bit, sitting at 244.4 today. It is a little tough watching it come down like that, but I'm mature enough to understand that, I'm not atrophying, I'm not losing size. This is water coming off, and it's inevitable at some point anyways. And frankly, even that little drop in weight has done me wonders in terms of like my mental health, my mental clarity. I feel like it's definitely just taken stress off this herniated disc and pinching the nerve in general. So, and on top of that, the big one, I find my cardiovascular system is just working so much more efficiently now. I'm not feeling so winded all the time. So, all good things there with the food coming down a little bit. And really, it wasn't a huge reduction in food, which I'll show you in a second. And one last note on that, I have actually seen a drop in blood sugar. I've only been measuring it fasted. I haven't been too worried about between meals because I'm kind of just sitting around anyways, and I'm assuming it's not coming down all that great. But just for transparency, it was higher than it should be for the last couple weeks. Fasted reading was anywhere between 6 and 6.6. I was going to report it in my check-in to my coach this week, but I'm happy to say that the last 2 days it's been down to 5.6, which is the upper end of where you want it. But, if it continues sitting there or even comes down further, I'm in a great spot. Absolutely not worried about that. All things considered, with food being this high, with output being this low, it's good to know that the body is still using the food somewhat efficiently. So, anyways, looking at the diet and what changes were made, not too much changed, but meal number one removed 25 grams of carbs from sourdough. Pre-workout meal stayed the same, besides on rest days, we're removing some of those carbs. So instead of 150 grams of cream of rice, brought it down to 120. And there was also honey in this meal, but we've removed that. And then as for the last meal, and this one, I'm really glad this one came down because this ties into the sleep thing. But anyways, reduced the carbs in my last meal from, I believe it was 130 grams down to just 85. And why I'm so glad that this one came down is because I'm finding I'm definitely getting to sleep a lot easier, and I'm getting a more restful sleep. That meal was a pretty heavy meal, and essentially my routine was eat it, go for a 10-minute walk, and then right into bed. So trying to digest that much food while trying to sleep, it was definitely interfering with the quality of my sleep. So now with this meal being down to 85 grams of carbs, it's a lot lighter meal. On top of that, my overall eating schedule has improved. My sleep wake schedule is improved. So now I'm eating this meal that's not that massive. I'm going for my walk. I still have time to, shower, get a couple things ready for the next day, and then go to bed. So giving me plenty of time to digest and feel, be in that, rest and digest state when it's time to go to bed. And overall, I feel like my sleep quality has improved. Obviously, there's other factors involved, but I think that's a big one. As for cardio, I actually got a good laugh out of this because I didn't notice it till later. But cardio, he left a note, no cardio, just sit on your ass. So that's what I've been doing. Unfortunately, I do thoroughly enjoy doing cardio, and I cannot wait to get back on the Stairmaster. But in the meantime, I know it's a necessary evil, so just sitting on my ass. As for steps, I'm actually not tracking them. I'm probably around 10,000 right now. Basically, I'm just going for a walk in between meals, 10 to 15-minute walk, probably closer to 10 minutes. So, yeah, set that at 10K. I'm probably achieving about that. Lastly, moving on to the PEDs and where we're at with that. So nothing's changed since the start of the cruise. I did go over that in the last video, but if you're new to the channel or didn't see that video, I'll go over it again where we're at. Testosterone set at 400 per week, Masteron at 200. So just for easier measuring, I'm actually doing 350 and 210. Doesn't really make a difference, just thought I would mention that. Growth hormone, 8 units before bed. Thyroid-wise, 100 micrograms of T4, which is something I just keep in year-round. And then for blood pressure, using 80 milligrams of telmisartan. I'm actually using Nabivolol at 5 milligrams per day. I found that is very beneficial for keeping my heart rate down. Not that it was like dangerously high or anything, but bringing it down a little bit is definitely more comfortable. So I've been running with that for, I want to say, a couple months now, and no problems there. As for Arimidex, we pulled it out completely during this cruise. I do suspect my estrogen probably is riding pretty high because of that. Traditionally on this type of dosing protocol, it would be running high. I'm a fairly high aromatizer, especially being this heavy and soft. There's probably quite a bit of estrogen going on, but with a little bit of masteron going on in the background. That's usually pretty good at mitigating any of the estrogenic effects. So I'm not too worried about it in the short term. I'm sure it is good to cycle off AIs once in a while. I can't remember the last time I pulled it out completely. So, it's I don't know if it's making a difference in terms of my overall health, but I think it's probably good to cycle it off once in a while. That's basically all I have for today's video. I just want to finish off by once again thanking everyone for the support on the channel, the great feedback I've been getting, all the new subscribers. It is encouraging and makes me want to continue doing this kind of stuff. So thank you. And it's also just in general a a light in a dark situation at the moment that allows me to invest some of this energy into something else other than training and being a bodybuilder or an athlete, right? So I do really appreciate that. And that being said, if you haven't subscribed, please do. I do have a list of topics I want to talk about. It might take some time to get them out because I'm going to be honest, they're not that easy to make. And I have a lot of respect for people that make that kind of content and, it's put together well. So I will get around to it, and it's going to just take some time to get used to it and get better at it, just like anything. And on top of that, if you're interested in any coaching, whether it's lifestyle, bodybuilding, I am grateful to have the opportunity to have onboarded quite a few guys that are actually interested in bodybuilding. I do love working with lifestyle people as well, but I obviously I love bodybuilding, so getting some clientele like that is super exciting. So if you fit into either of those categories and are looking for coaching, please reach out. The best way to get a hold of me would be on Instagram. We can have a consultation if you want to do a call just over text, whatever. That's where you can reach me. And besides that, that's basically all I have. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.